Yo, what's up? So I just want to do a quick run through of the pain in the butt process of getting these files ready for Webtoon. Um, it's a lot of copy and pasting. So first off, I start and I draw all of my, oh yeah, first off, this is going to have images and text and everything from episode 11 of Hacksaw. So if you are reading Hacksaw, you probably want to wait until you read chapter 11 before you watch this video. So yeah, there's your fair warning. So anyways, I start off with all these files, and because Webtoons is such a long format, the infinite canvas vertically, I break everything up into all these little files and I number them. So A01 is arc 1, C11 is chapter 11, and P003 is page 3. So I break it up into these. So chapter 11 has 8 separate files. And I do that so the file doesn't get too big. So when I send it to the flatter and the colorist, their computers don't explode. And so my computer doesn't explode. So I have all these. I send this to the flatter. He flats it. I send it to the color. He colors it. And he sends me this back. And this is the file that I get back from him. And usually it's a huge file. And I keep a copy of the huge file, but I also shrink it down to 800 by whatever it ends up being after I shrink the width down to 800, because Webtoons is 800 pixels wide and I leave it at 300 resolution. So I do that for all the files and I save a separate copy of them. So I do that for all of these. So I have a bunch of 800 pixel wide files all in separate things. But to get it to Webtoons, it has to be one big continual thing. Plus I need it to figure out the spacing between all the panels, because if they just shoved all these files together, it would look really weird and not read right. Alright, so the next thing I do, I guess I can get rid of this guy because I'm starting. So this is the first page that I have. So the first thing I do is I take this guy, and it's a PSD file right now, but I save it as a large document format, a PSB, and I changed this from page 1 to full. Alright, so now it is a large format file, which means I can do this. I can change the canvas size up to 60,000, and higher if you needed to. So basically it makes this huge file, which is a lot of fun to work with. You can see how long it is. So first things first, gotta fill in the white background. Oh no, it's all black. There we go. Okay, so that's the first things first. So, and then when the colorist sends me this, he gives me all these different layers, which is cool, but right now I'm gonna hope everything's perfect. I won't have to mess with that. So I go ahead and I merge all those layers together into one layer, and I name it art. So I zoom in, and now I have the first 3 panels. So the first thing I like to do is go ahead and get my marquee tool and I select it. Move all these over because I don't need to see them right now. Just need to see that much of them. A little bit more. Okay. Alright, so first thing I do is I grab that art layer and I want to move this down because I like a little more space at the top. And I think the Webtoons guys format this for me somewhat. And then I start adding in Aaron S. Pittman is the colorist for this. So he adds some fading in for me. But the file sizes, I try to save as much room on white space as possible so I don't have all that room in there, and I'm not sure how long I want it to be either. So he does some of this pixelization for me, but I always tend to add more. So I'm adding some more in here just to fade it down for the reader. some smaller ones, and then I like to overlap them with a different color. I pull this down to blue a little bit, saturate it a little more. Right. Oops. Okay, so I add a little bit of that just to give it a little more room. And then I move this down. And this is kind of like, it's a little tricky because when the reader is looking at it, they're probably looking at it about this size. So you kind of have to imagine what it looks like when they're scrolling and how much space there needs to be between the panels. I think usually that's a fair amount. Like sometimes you can put text between it. And obviously the panels are very long, so you can't zoom in that close because you can't tell what's going on. So you kind of have to get a feeling for what the size is at the or the zoom level you're at. Okay, so I do all that and get the panels all spaced out, and so that's the first part. And then I have to come over here and I find page 2 right there, and then it's the same thing. He has all the layers here split out for me and all the different art. So what I tend to do here, sometimes I'll go back and forth, like either I'll grab one panel and just do a Shift Control C, which is a copy all layers in Photoshop, and then paste it over here and just move it, get the right spacing like so. And I hold Shift down when I'm moving things up and down because it keeps it locked to either being vertical or horizontal for the most part. But there are a lot of panels here. So what I would usually do then is to select all of them. And then come over here, scroll up, and paste all of them at once. And move them down. And then I would start shifting all of them down to get the right spacing. And I kind of just go for a standard default spacing here. Alright, so I get that. Remember to save, because it is a little tedious. So you don't want to lose all that work. Go to page 3 and then do the same thing. By the way, Aaron did an awesome job on the colors for this chapter. They're crazy. I always feel bad because I send him back so many notes. But he always goes and he does them and makes it look even better than I thought it was going to look. So mad props to Aaron for dealing with me and for making awesome colors. So anyways, I would go through all 8 files and I would do that for all 8 files. I'm not going to make you suffer through that right now. Just what I showed you times 8 and all the time it would take. So so you can see like this one has even more panels. More panels. I also have some stuff going on here where I was adding panels and shifting panels, so the story doesn't actually read right. So there's panels that are in page 5 that need to come here, and this one actually needs to go further back. But I'll have to deal with that stuff later. That was a one-off. That doesn't usually happen. Okay, so I would do that for all of them. And the next step, once I have everything in there, I would usually go ahead and one of these is the fade. So I renamed this and I'd call it like fade. And that's like an effect layer. I don't usually flatten all the layers down for those because I kind of use it as an effects layer, so I kind of save it for last. But all these other layers that I just copied over, all these guys, layer 2 is that panel. I'll take all those and I'll flatten them into one big art layer. Alright, so if we just imagine that all those panels went all the way down to the bottom, the next step would be the letter. So I I've been trying to get my lettering done while the Flatter and Aaron are doing their thing. So I take the file that I sent the Flatter originally, and I'll start doing the lettering on top of it. This is the first time I lettered with the balloons. I think the last 2 chapters I only lettered, and then all the chapters before that I was kind of doing the lettering after I got the colors back, which was hard because at that point I had done so much other chapters I wasn't even remembering what I wanted the characters to say. And yes, I do have a script, but I'm very loose with my scripts and I rewrite as I'm drawing. But because there was such a long spacing between chapter 1 to chapter 6, I had forgotten a lot of it. And I tried to write little notes in my thumbnails, but sometimes I would forget or it would be super unlegible. So I'm getting better. So this was my first attempt at getting better, but I haven't actually used this process yet. So my plan is just to take these 2 columns or 2 layers that have all of the stuff in there in groups, and I can just take those 2 and drag it over here, and then they'll be here, and then I can just move them to where they need to be spacing wise. It is going to be a little weird because you can't, like, it would be, I wish you could like marquee select lettering and then move it around for just the selections that are across those 2 layers, which is something that Clip Studio can do. But Photoshop cannot, because if I try to select that lettering box and the letters and I have those 2 groups selected, if I try to move it, it moves everything regardless of what I had selected, so that's kind of annoying. So basically I would take those, and then I could do text and move the text to where it needed to be. Like, I forget where I want it. I guess that's kind of the right spot, but let's say I wanted it here, right? I'd move the text there, and I would hit A to go to the shape tool, and then move that guy to where he needed to be. And obviously I would have to be way more zoomed in here because I can't see what I'm doing. So I hit T, click on the text, move it where I want it, hit A. Shortcut keys are your friend, and hit A, select that shape, and get the shape in the right spot to where it's supposed to be. And that looks good. And then I would just do that everywhere. Right. Oops. I lost your tail. Boom. So I would do that across all these panels. So again, just imagine that multiplied by 8 times 5 times 3 times 20. So that one doesn't actually have any text, but God, did I finish? Maybe I didn't even finish. Oh wait, no, sorry. These are the color files. So because I was doing it while I was waiting for the colors to get finished, I have another separate letter folder that has the lettering in it. So you can see this one has a bunch of lettering. And you also saw how much I spaced out the panels when I actually put them down. So what that means is I'm going to have to basically replace all of these into the right spot. And if I could select the text and the box at the same time, it would be perfect. I could flatten the balloon and the lettering layers, and then I could just copy and paste those. But I think that could potentially come back and bite me later on if I had to. If I keep it as text layers and shape layers, I can always resize those up and edit them, obviously, if I need to without any loss of resolution. So I want to keep them as their vector layers and text layers. But yeah, it's a problem. So now, right now, saying that, I probably need to do more work to make sure that the spacing is correct to begin with when I'm doing these, which is a little tricky because I'm have them broken up across multiple files, so the bottom and the top won't quite have the right spacing. But because they're in separate files, yeah, so I'll have to do that. So basically I need to make sure within a file that these panels are the right separation, or at least close to the right separation, because obviously these are too close. And the reason I make them really close is so I can save some file space. But I think it would save me more if I actually use that white space. So anyways, I have all those letters. I drag them over here. I stick them in the right spot on top of the art that I already fixed. I gotta say this real quick. Like, I love this panel right here. Aaron did an awesome job of coloring that one. And it's so simple, right? It's just eyeballs. But so I copy all those letters over and good. So I do that for all of the artwork. And then at that point, I'm done. And I wish I could do it that quick, but I can't. The other thing that I have that I do, and it comes into play when I'm doing the letters the first time. When I'm just placing them, it doesn't matter. But let's say I was going to do the lettering right here. I have a resource file, and you can see it's just like a big jumbled mess. But if I click on that, I have all of these layers in it. So I have groups for the balloons. So I have like regular character balloon, I have like a double character balloon, yellow balloons, balloons for transmissions, for the computer, etc. I have the logo in here. I have the lettering layers for like the characters or the computers, labels, and then I have also some effects that I've used already. And then miscellaneous stuff like t-shirt design things. So I can, if I need to, right? I want somebody to say something here, so I click on that layer and I get this card text layer, and I just come over here and drag it into this, and then I can type on that and say hello. And then, that way I know that all the font formatting is what I need it to be for the character. And then I can come here and grab this. I just clicked on the resource thing again. I can click and hold on the car balloon, and I bring it, drag it over to the file I'm working on, and it's there. And it's good to go, and I can move it around as needed. So when I do that originally, what I would do is I would go through and I would do all of the text first and type in my text. Come in here, and once you start typing text, as long as you don't do any weird font changes or anything, you don't need to keep coming over and pulling down that car text. It'll keep your format at that point. And so I would add in all the text, and then I would click below all of the text, and then I could start coming in here and dragging in the balloons. And for these, you have to drag in the balloons if you want to keep the formatting. So like this one's a double balloon, and I have like yellow balloons. Boom. So the trick to using these, right, is once you get used to it, it's pretty clear. So I have this one balloon layer, right, and it's this guy right here. So you can see there's 4 different shapes here: the balloon, the connector, and the tail. So you can grab this balloon, drag it up here, and you can see it's too big, so you hit Control T on a PC. I don't know what it is for a Mac. And then you can resize it to what it needs to be here. And then you're good to go. And then you grab this one, drag it up here. Again, resize it for that lettering. And then you're like, uh-oh, I have another text down here, but I don't have a balloon. So you can click on that balloon that you want, hit Control C and hit Control V. It creates a new balloon right in that shape layer. It's not a new layer, it's inside that one. So you can move that one as you need to. You take this little connector tail and you can control T that one also, and you can control C, control V it, and have another copy and move that guy also and resize it as you need to get it to connect. And obviously this isn't really great lettering, but you get the idea. And so you can make, as many of these as you need within the one layer. And because it's one layer, you can just take that layer and move all of them together. And you're good to go. So that is how I do that. And then, yeah, and so I have everything preset up in here, so I don't have to mess around with it too much. I can just drag from here and drop in and go to town. So that is pretty much what I do. Like all this would be done, and then once I get to the bottom, and I know I'm finished, I come over here and I grab this logo layer and drop it in and put it there, and I'm like, yeah, I'm done. I usually put that at the top because it makes me feel good. And that is pretty much it. Yo, what's up, Scribbles? Yeah, so if anybody has any questions, I'll happily answer them. I know that's a lot of stuff. And there's obviously, just even talking to you guys about it right now has made me think about some easier ways to do it. This is what I'm doing for chapter 12. And instead of keeping multiple files, I did all the thumbnails in one file so I could see all of the panels together and I could see how everything's working. And then I also did lettering inside of the file here, so I could also make sure that I could actually remember what the characters were supposed to be saying. Because sometimes, like, I'll draw a face and I'm like, I don't know what that expression was, and I also don't remember what he's supposed to be saying, so I don't know if he's supposed to be happy, smiling, shocked. So this is a good way for me to keep track of all that. And then once I'm done and I'm going to go do the final files, I can't do it like this because it would be such a huge file. My computer would be so slow. I just marquee select the section between the columns, and this would be a file. This one would be a file, this one would be a file, this one would be a file, and so on. And so those all become separate files, but at least I know the story works correctly and I have the lettering done already, and everything will make sense, as opposed to me trying to figure it out a week later and not remembering anything. So that's the way I did it for chapter 12, which I think will be good. The only other thing I could add, like I was saying before, is to make sure I get the spacing right first off, so I don't have to worry as much about the lettering. I'm sure I'll still have to shift stuff around, but I think with doing it like this, like I did the chapter 12 one, and having the letters already, I can more accurately decide what the spacing needs to be between each file, and that will save me time later. But yeah, so that's what I do for the Webtoons formatting. Then I have this huge file. Luckily, at that point, Webtoons will take my file and put it up online for me. I'm not sure exactly what they do, because you can't put this giant file online and just show it, because I don't think Chrome or IE will display it. So they have to splice it basically into multiple little files and throw it up there, because it does it in like 1,000 pixel increments. So if I have my file is 60,000 pixels, what is that? That's like 6,000 files. So they have some way of automating it. I'm not sure exactly how. Like, I know how to splice a file. It's a tool here. It's a slice tool, and then you can slice this file, and then you can right click on that slice, and then you can divide the slice, and you can tell it to divide it into 1,000 pixel per slice, and it'll slice it all automatically for you, which is cool. But I don't know how to automate that to get it to save as multiple files. Like I know I can, when I have this slice selected, I can control C that slice and I can open a new file and paste that slice in like that, but I'm not going to do that 6,000 times. And you're supposed to be able to come up here and go to save for web and devices, and that's supposed to be able to save your slices out as individual files. But because the file itself is so big and at such a high resolution, Photoshop won't let me save it out at the resolution I want because Photoshop is weird. And I haven't been able to find a way around that. So one of these days I'm going to ask Webtoons how they do that, because I'd be interested. Maybe it's just my version of Photoshop is messed up, but I'm happy they do that part for me. But yeah, so that's that. I don't think anyone has any questions, but I'll give it another minute if you have a question because of the delay. Trying to think if there's anything else I can say. Having this resource file is super useful. This is the first time I've done it, and then I used it again when I was drawing Isnana, which is a really cool book that you should check out. That was the artist for the first issue or first volume, and then I did a backup story in the second volume. Let me see if I can find a link. So yeah, so if you want to check out that book, it's really cool. Take a look. And so yeah, so I used a resource file in that book too because I was doing the lettering for that book as well as the art, and so it was just super helpful to have all these balloons and everything set up, and I could just drag and copy and reuse balloons and resize them because it's just way quicker than trying to hand do every balloon. Thank you for watching, and as usual, you can find me in all kinds of different places. You can read Hacksaw if you don't know what this is. It's my comic that is on Webtoons right now, and it's live, and it's up to chapter 8 or 9 right now. I think 9 just posted, but that's the link if you want to check it out. It's a sci-fi action drama epic with a young hacker trying to take on a huge corporation, but she is super shy and awkward and has to overcome that. Otherwise, you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, etc., etc. All right, guys. I will catch you later. I hope this was helpful. Peace.